Testing, testing.
On the, he's not gonna be able to, yeah. Abdu, can you hear me?
Hello, yes, good morning. I'm able to hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Just so you know, sir, you're the last item on the agenda, so you'll hear the item called towards the end of the hearing, okay?
Okay, thank
Administrative meeting for March 6, 2024. Our first item is to approve the minutes from our meeting of February 21st, 2024. Commissioner Sussman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barve. Aye. Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. There are 4 items on today's consent agenda. Item 1 is a request from OEE 33 LLC for certification as a renewable energy facility. Item number 2 is a notice of internal corporate reorganization from AT&T Corp. and AT&T Enterprises. Item number 3 is an application from BioReliance Corporation for approval to construct a generation station. And item number 4 is a notification from Cogeco U.S. Enterprise LLC of participation in financing arrangements.
Okay, regarding item 1, I move that we approve the application and issue a renewable energy facility ID certification number. Direct the applicant to establish a REC account with PJM GATS within 30 days of the certification and file an on-site and behind-the-meter generation report with the commission within 1 week of each recording of generation data with GATS, and finally direct the applicant to notify the commission within 30 days if the information on which the application is based has changed. Commissioner Sushman?
Aye.
Commissioner Barbe?
Aye.
Commissioner Richard?
Aye.
I vote aye. Item 2, I move that we note the company's merger into AT&T Enterprises, Inc., and the subsequent conversion of AT&T Enterprises, Inc. to an LLC. Commissioner Sushman?
Aye.
Commissioner Barbe?
Aye.
Commissioner Richard?
Aye.
I vote aye. Item 3, I move that we approve the application and direct the applicant to notify the commission in writing 2 weeks before the first export of any electricity. Commissioner Sushman?
Aye.
Commissioner Barbe?
Aye.
Commissioner Richard?
Aye.
I vote aye. And regarding item 4, I move that we note the new financing of Congego U.S. Enterprises LLC. Commissioner Barbe?
Aye.
Commissioner Sushman?
Aye.
Commissioner Richard?
Aye.
I vote aye.
Mr. Chair, item number 5 on the administrative agenda consists of revised tariff pages from Chesapeake Utilities Corporation, Maryland Division, Sandpiper Energy, Inc., and Elkton Gas Company.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Pam Coates on behalf of staff. Chesapeake Utilities Corporation operates 3 Maryland utilities: Chesapeake Maryland Division, Sandpiper, and Elkton. Chesapeake Utilities Corporation is developing a common billing system for the 3 utilities, which is expected to come into service in August of 2024 or thereafter. To gain the most efficiency from the system, the company is seeking to put in place a common budget billing program across the 3 utilities. A budget billing program protects customers from bill fluctuations that naturally occur due primarily to weather. Under a budget billing program, the company estimates the total annual bill and spreads that amount evenly over the months of the program with a true-up at the end of the program. Currently, Chesapeake, Maryland Division, and Sandpiper describe their budget billing programs in their tariffs. Elkton offers budget billing, but it is not described in their tariff. The proposed budget billing program, which would be available to customers at all 3 utilities, would be offered to all residential customers and most commercial customers, not the large commercial and industrial, who have 12 months of consecutive bills and who begin the program with a 0 balance on their account. It would spread the cost across 12 months and would true up each customer's account on the anniversary of the customer's enrollment in the program. A customer could be removed from the program if they missed at least 2 consecutive payments. This requirement is consistent with the Office of Home Energy Programs, the OHEP assistance programs. All current budget billing customers at all 3 utilities would be able to remain on the program. The company states that if any customer who qualifies for OHEP assistance needs to be on budget billing to receive that assistance, the company would waive the requirements for 12 months of consecutive bills, a 0 balance, or both, to enable the customer to participate in budget billing and thereby receive OHEP assistance. Staff recommends that the proposed tariff language be modified slightly to make it explicit that either or both of those requirements may be waived. Staff also has 2 other minor tariff language recommendations for the purpose of keeping the language comparable across the 3 tariffs. Staff's exact tariff language recommendations are found on page 5 of staff comments. The company has offered to work with the Office of People's Counsel and staff to develop language for notifying and explaining the new program to customers. Staff recommends the Commission accept for filing the proposed tariffs as revised by staff to become effective on the in-service date of Chesapeake Utilities Corporation's new billing and payment platform, subject to the company notifying the Commission of the effective date at least 2 weeks prior to the tariff becoming effective, notifying customers of the changes, and working with staff and OPC to develop an appropriate customer message. Thank you, and I'm available for questions.
Any questions? No. Okay.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, Brian Quinn on behalf of Chesapeake Utilities. Appreciate staff's extremely thorough buck sheet as usual, and here to answer any questions. Thank you.
So any questions for Chesapeake? Commissioner Sussman.
Just one question. Can you give me a sense of the percentage of residential customers that elect to participate in this?
I know the total numbers on page 2 of staff's buck sheet, and we have, so I'd have to do the math. We would have to do the math. We have like 6,000 customers in Elkton. Marie Kozo. 7,000 customers in Elkton and 85 currently use budget billing.
Okay. And then in terms of the other two companies, do you have? I just if you could just provide that, I'd be interested in that.
I was told there'd be no math quiz this week,
I'm sorry.
but yes.
This is what happens when you appear before us. You never know.
Absolutely, we'll get you those percentages.
Okay, that's
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just for the record, so to speak, you're fine with this revisions that staff talked about regarding
Absolutely.
the tariff? Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
that works. Okay, so with that, I move that we accept the proposed tariffs as revised by staff for filing to become effective on the in-service date of Chesapeake Utility Corporation's new billing and payment platform, subject to the company notifying the commission of the effective date at least 2 weeks prior to the tariffs becoming effective, and notifying customers of the changes, and working with staff and the Office of People's Counsel to develop an appropriate customer message. Commissioner Sussman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barve. Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Item number 6 also consists of revised tariff pages from Chesapeake Utilities Corporation Maryland Division and Sandpiper Energy, Inc.
Good morning again, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Pam Coates on behalf of staff, and Mr. Samuel Tete is also present from the Engineering Division to address any technical questions related to this filing. Gas usage is billed in one of two ways: according to the physical amount of gas used, 100 cubic feet or CCF, or according to the amount of energy used, which is therms. To give some perspective, BGE, Washington Gas, and Columbia all bill in therms. Chesapeake Utilities Corporation is seeking to bill customers at all three of its Maryland utilities in therms. Currently, Elkton bills in therms, while Chesapeake Maryland Division and Sandpiper bill in CCFs. As discussed in the previous item, Chesapeake Utility Corporation is developing a common billing system for the three utilities, which is expected to come into service in August 2024 or soon thereafter. Putting the three utilities on a common billing unit would enable the company to gain the most efficiency from the new system. Gas meters measure usage in CCFs, so to bill in therms, gas usage must be converted from CCFs to therms. The company has experience doing this conversion because Elkton already bills in therms. Staff engineers have examined the company's proposal and find the methodology to be appropriate. The company does not expect any change to customers' bills, only to the unit in which customers are billed. As with the previous item, the company has offered to work with the Office of People's Counsel and staff to develop language for notifying and explaining the change to customers. Staff recommends the Commission accept the proposed tariffs for filing to become effective on the in-service date of Chesapeake Utilities Corporation's new billing and payment platform, subject to the company notifying the Commission of the effective date at least 2 weeks prior to the tariffs becoming effective, notifying customers of the changes, and working with staff and OPC to develop an appropriate customer message. Thank you, and Mr. Tete and I are available for questions.
So, any questions for staff?
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Brian Quinn on behalf of Chesapeake. We are in agreement with staff's buck sheet and appreciate the effort. I'm here to answer any questions except please don't ask me to do the conversion from CCF to therms for you.
Well, let me ask one question, though. I mean, I know most customers, when they open the bill, look at the dollar numbers as opposed to the usage numbers. But is there going to be some, like, surprise and customers thinking that somehow they're being overcharged when they see this new calculation of the gas?
Yeah.
Are you asking me?
Well, I guess either one. I mean, either staff or the company.
Well, okay, my perspective is this. I asked the company, do you expect that the bill amounts will change in any way from this? And they said no.
Okay.
And that is also reasonable given that the conversion's done properly. However, messaging is going to be crucial. And so I think where that has to be addressed and addressed carefully and clearly and not at a technical level that's going to lose people is in that messaging and preparing people maybe in advance that this is coming and then here it is. And so I think that has to be worked out in that messaging work that will be done by the company and OPC and staff.
So, and is the messaging going to be the traditional bill insert?
Bill insert, yes, sir.
All right, I guess the only thing I'm concerned about when it comes to that, though, is, you know, again, a lot of customers view that as like junk mail and don't read it. So, I mean, is there some way that we can, like, you know, alert people like, hey, you know, along the lines of what you were talking about trying to give, you know, fair warning, look, change is coming, and actually read this one this time?
Mr. Chairman, we'll commit to do as robust a notification process as staff and OPC and the company can agree to. I'm sure we can do website and additional ideas if we can come up with them amongst ourselves, but understood.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
So,
So,
Commissioner Sushma.
I'm wondering, and this could involve a little bit of math, but I'm not going to ask you to do the math. Since it does represent a change in how a customer sees a bill, I wonder if it's possible to perhaps have, you know, 2 or 3 months of billing where you show the old way, the new way, and the fact that they are the same, so that it gives customers the ability to understand what's being changed and why it's not going to have an impact on them.
Point taken,
Okay.
Commissioner. And again, Elkton customers already see it,
Sure.
their bill in this way, so we really are only worried about Sandpiper and the Maryland Division customers. But
Thank
we'll
you.
do.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, with that, I move that we accept the proposed tariffs for filing to become effective on the in-service date of Chesapeake Utilities Corporation's new billing and payment platform, subject to the company notifying the commission of the effective date at least 2 weeks prior to the tariffs becoming effective, and notifying customers of the changes, and working with staff and OPC and Office of People's Counsel to develop the appropriate customer messages. Commissioner Sushman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbe. Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Mr. Chair, item number 7 consists of revised tariff pages from Columbia Gas of Maryland, Inc.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Alden Manka on behalf of staff. On January 26th, 2024, Columbia Gas of Maryland, Inc. filed revised rates for its elective balancing service rider, EBS rider, to become effective with the April 2024 billing cycle. This rider is designed to recover costs incurred in providing banking and balancing services to Columbia's commercial and industrial transportation customers. The rate this year is proposed to increase to $0.00956 per therm, which is the maximum rate allowed by the company's tariff and is a 4.8% increase from last year. This is due to an increase in banking and balancing costs and a decrease in the projected quantity of therms, which are used to calculate the rate. Staff has reviewed the company's calculation and found them to be in accordance with the requirements of the EBS rider. Staff recommends that the proposed tariff revision be accepted for filing, effective with Columbia's April 2024 billing cycle. Thank you, and I'm available for questions.
So, any questions?
Good morning. Rebecca Dan Hires on behalf of Columbia Gas, and I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for Columbia? All right, seeing none.
Thank
I
you.
move that we accept the tariff revisions for filing with an effective for filing effective with the April 2024 billing cycle. Commissioner Sushman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barve.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Item number 8 consists of revised tariff pages from the Southern Maryland Electric Cooperative, Inc.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Anson Justy on behalf of staff. On January 26, 2024, the Southern Maryland Electric Cooperative, SMECO, filed tariff revisions to add Schedule EV-MUD. This schedule describes SMECO's cooperative-owned and operated electric vehicle EV multi-unit dwelling MUD or MUD charger installation program as approved in a letter order dated February 8, 2023. SMECO's EV MUD charger installation program allows it to install, own, and operate up to a total of 35 smart Level 2 chargers at partnering MUDs. SMECO is responsible for all costs such as equipment, installation, operations, and maintenance, but charges users 18 cents per kilowatt hour, consistent with currently in place public charging rates for Level 2 chargers. Partnering MUDs must agree to permit EV charger operation on the property for at least 5 years and designate at least one parking space per charging port. The approved budget is $1.925 million and is anticipated to be spent over the next 2 years. The program does not currently have a required minimum target for low and moderate income LMI MUD charger installations, but the cooperative has indicated in this filing and in its initial application for the program that it intends to prioritize projects based on the estimated number of users, the location's proximity to populous low-income areas, and the location's proximity to existing public charging stations. Excuse me, if it finds greater interest in the program than anticipated. Staff and the cooperative have agreed to a tariff language change to indicate the maximum number of EV MUD chargers the cooperative may install under the program. And to balance flexibility for the cooperative to install chargers in areas with matching demand and efforts to support LMI customer welfare specifically, staff recommends the Commission require the cooperative to install at least 5 of the 35 chargers in LMI areas. Staff has also read the Office of People's Counsel's comments, and while the comments agree with the recommendation, staff would like to note that it does not believe House Bill 834 requires all or a great majority of EV MUD charging spending to occur in underserved areas. Staff recommends the Commission accept the tariff as revised by staff and require 5 of the 35 approved SMECO-owned and operated EV MUD chargers to be installed in low and moderate income areas. Thank you. I'm available for questions.
So, any questions for staff? Okay, well, we'll get to them. So, actually, let me turn to OPC before we get to you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Molly Woods for the Office of People's Counsel. You have our comments, so I will just say briefly that we support the agreed upon tariff revision and also support staff's recommendation that 5 of the 35 chargers be required to be located in underserved communities. I will just note that OPC does not believe either that House Bill 834 requires that MUD chargers are only located in LMI communities, but we think it indicates a legislative intent to prioritize LMI communities, which is why we support the recommendation of staff.
Okay, any questions? All right, so.
Good morning, Chair Hoover, members of the Commission. Damon Krieger on behalf of Southern Maryland Electric Cooperative. We're excited to get to this point to continue deployment of our multi-unit dwelling electric vehicle program. Thanks to staff, thanks to OPC for their thoughtful comments. As staff indicated, we are supportive both of the minor change to the tariff submission to add clarification that we are deploying up to 35 level 2 charging stations to multi-unit dwellings, and to prioritize for installation 5 of the 35 in low and moderate income multi-unit dwellings. I'll only say with respect to the second, we would appreciate reserving the right to come back to the Commission to the extent that we cannot, after multiple attempts to target such communities, install them at those sites. The end goal here is to get the chargers in the ground, and Southern Maryland has a limited number of multi-unit dwellings, and so again, the 5 we have no issue with at this point in time. If it comes a year from now where we're not successful in this regard, we would just like to reserve the right to come back to the Commission to request a modification. And with that, I'm happy to address any questions.
Commissioner Barbe.
Thank you. Level 1 versus level 2. This is a little off the topic, maybe not, given the fact that you might want to modify your stance in the future. A lot of the literature that I've been reading recently is that especially for multi-unit dwellings, that deploying level 1 chargers is cheaper. You can get more plugs out for people. A lot of the adoption of EVs in the next couple of years is going to be probably in plug-in hybrid vehicles, especially for LMI constituencies in our state, where you have a battery that only has 40 miles of range, and in a regular wall socket, a level 1 wall socket, at a rate of 5 miles per hour, that could get filled up in 8 hours, which means that you could have a full battery in the morning, even with a regular wall socket, and probably for more cheaply. So I'm just curious to know whether you have considered level 1 as part of the mix. Level 2 is great. It's faster, obviously. It's also more expensive, and it has a bigger energy draw. So I'm just curious to know whether you're willing to seriously consider level 1, especially, given the fact that so many people are going to have plug-in hybrid vehicles that have a lower battery maximum capacity.
Yeah, actually, I think it's a great question, and from a prior occupation, I can tell you that there was a significant effort to install what I would sort of defined as power bollards with outlets built into the bollards to allow vehicles to charge at those stations. I'll take it back certainly to the cooperative for thoughtful consideration. I think one of the opportunities with the current pilot program is the cost of entry for multi-unit dwellings with respect to level 2 chargers as opposed to level 1, where it's certainly, as you indicated, a lower cost of entry for the facilities to install themselves. It's much more difficult, particularly when you're talking about LMI installations, for them to absorb the initial cost to install these facilities. So this really is an opportunity to get them on site, whereas level 1 certainly has a lesser price tag at the onset. But I think it's a very valid point and something I'll certainly take back to the cooperative.
I'll just conclude by saying my wife and I both drive electric cars, and we are fortunate in the building that we live in. We're able to just plug into a regular wall socket, and we almost never use fast chargers. So, and the vehicle range in our vehicles are in the 200 to 300 mile range. So I think that people are underestimating the effectiveness of level 1 charging.
Sure. And to the extent you did not know, Commissioner Barve, our application originally did also suggest the possibility of installing DC fast chargers at these sites. That was taken out of the application, so we are limited to level 2 at this point.
Yeah, I think level 3 is overkill in this case. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Sussman.
Good morning, Mr. Krieger.
Morning.
Is this tariff a time of use tariff, or is it just a straight same rate regardless of when you charge?
It's a straight rate for the multi-unit dwelling tariff. We do have an EV time of use for our residential customers at their households. At the
Okay.
single-family.
So, and what was the reasoning in not having time of use be included in this tariff?
Yeah, I'm not sure the metrology is in place yet to do time of use at a public charging station, but
Okay.
honestly, I have to take that one back.
Please.
The work group has probably explored that issue, and I know this is a pilot program, obviously, and so those types of ideas have been given, and I'm sure will continue to be given thoughtful consideration as part of the working group process. But we do have a separate EV.
Well, and the fact that we're looking at charging as a way to perhaps either assist the distribution system, the operation of the distribution system, or take stress off the system, to the extent that time of use can help that. This may be a missed opportunity. So I would appreciate you sort of taking it back and seeing if there's an opportunity, since it's a pilot, to include time of use in the operation of this.
Happy to do so.
It's great. Thank you.
I would just note on that the 18 cents per kilowatt hour is the commission approved rate as of right now. I think there's not a TOU rate necessarily out there.
Okay.
So let me ask you about the 5 sites that are going to hopefully be low and moderate income sites. I mean, do you anticipate this being difficult to do? I mean, I noticed you said, look, we want to reserve the right to come back if we can't make it. So.
Yeah. At this time, the answer is no. We think that we have more than 5 identified as potential candidates. The challenge, frankly, it starts with property rights, and depending upon whether the multi-unit dwelling is a condominium association or an apartment complex can sometimes present different challenges with working with the owner of that particular facility, or owners in the case of a condominium association, to get the initial property rights. But the straight answer is no. We actually have more than 5 identified as potential targets at this time.
Okay. All right, that should work. All right, with that, let me move that we accept the tariff revisions for filing as revised by staff in its comments dated February 26, 2024, and require 5 of the up to 35 approved SMECO owned and operated EV mud chargers to be installed in low and moderate income areas. Commissioner Sussman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbe.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Mr. Chair, item number 9 is a waiver request from RER Energy Group, LLC.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Michael Dean on behalf of staff. Item 9 is a filing by RER Energy Group, LLC, requesting a waiver of COMAR 20.62.03.08 to allow co-location of 2 community solar energy generating stations to be located near Grantsville and Garrett County. Under current Commission co-location regulations at COMAR 20.62.03.08A, community solar projects of 500 kilowatts or greater cannot be located on the same or adjacent land parcel. However, .08E provides that the subscriber organization may petition the Commission for a waiver for good cause shown of the co-location restriction to allow construction of a second community solar project provided the combined capacity does not exceed 4 megawatts and 100% of its output serves low or moderate income subscribers. The application requests co-location of a second 2 megawatt community solar project on the same land parcel as an approved 2 megawatt project with 100% of the output serving low or moderate income subscribers. Construction of neither project has yet commenced, and both projects will be separately metered. Since the combined capacity of the 2 community solar projects does not exceed 4 megawatts and 100% of its output will serve low or moderate income subscribers, the request meets the criteria for granting the waiver. Good cause exists to grant the waiver as expressed state policy listed in Public Utilities Section 7-3062B2 is to promote the development of additional community solar energy system projects for the benefit of low and moderate income electric customers, and approval of the waiver would be consistent with the state renewable energy portfolio standard, which requires for 2024 that at least 6.5% be derived from solar energy located in Maryland. Staff recommends that the Commission grant the requested waiver of COMAR 20.62.03.08A and allow co-location of the 2 community solar energy projects.
Any questions for staff? Okay.
Hello, Jim Kurtz, President of RER Energy Group. Very much appreciate the work of the staff and everything the Commission advocates here for advancing renewable energy. Hopefully the comments are clear, but here to answer any questions.
So are both these projects in Grantsville?
Yes.
Interesting.
And just a question about the company. So is it your mission to try to provide up to 100% or 100% of the output of the projects to the low and moderate income community?
It is, and it's a motivation for the landowner. It is a low-income area, and this was one of the reasons why he decided to go forward with the project to help
and
people in the area.
Is this the first? Do you have other projects in and around that area?
This will be the first project in Western Maryland. We have another meeting today with Delmarva and Eastern Shore. We have projects across the northeast of the U.S., but this would be the first project in that area. Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, with that, I move that we grant the company the requested waiver of Comar 20.62.03.08A and allow co-location of the two community solar energy generating systems. Commissioner Sussman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbe.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Mr. Chair, item number 10 consists of revisions, tariff revisions from the Baltimore Gas and Electric Company.
Good morning, Chair Hoover and Commissioners. Lucy Shea on behalf of staff. Rider 12 of Baltimore Gas and Electric's tariff provides a detailed description and calculation of requirements for the gas administrative charge, or GAC. The GAC recovers commodity-related costs by either adding a calculated amount or applying a calculated percentage to the following costs: credit and collections expense, commodity billing charge, storage inventory carrying costs, commodity cash working capital, uncollectible expense, and public service commission assessment. In this filing, BGE seeks the Commission's approval to update the GAC charges following the issuance of Commission Order Number 9048 in BGE's most recent gas base rate proceeding, case number 9692, issued on December 14th, 2023. Staff has reviewed BGE's calculation of the GAC and believes it is accurate and consistent with the requirements under the settlement in case 8950. The effect of the revised GAC on an average residential heating sales customer using 55 therms per month will be an increase of 7 cents per month, an increase from the current $1.28 to $1.35 monthly. Customers do not see the gas administrative charge as separate line items on their bills, as the charge is included in the monthly billed gas commodity price under Rider 2. Staff recommends that the Commission accept the new gas administrative charge for filing effective March 1st, 2024. Thank you.
Any questions? All right.
Good morning, Commissioners. Beverly Sikora on behalf of BGE. I have no further comments, but I'm here for questions.
Any questions? Seeing none. I move we accept the tariff provisions for filing with an effective date of March 1, 2024. Commissioner Sussman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbe.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Mr. Chair, item number 11 is a request from Baltimore Gas and Electric Company to modify its smart charge management program.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Drew McAuliffe on behalf of staff. On February 7th, 2024, Baltimore Gas and Electric filed tariff revisions and a request to modify its Smart Charge Management, or SCM, program. The SCM program began in April 2020 when the Exelon Joint Utilities, including BGE, submitted an application to the United States Department of Energy, DOE, for grant funding to conduct an EV charging demonstration project. On October 1st, 2020, they were awarded approximately $5 million in DOE funding to support the SCM program. On August 30th, 2021, the Exelon Joint Utilities filed a request to the Commission for authorization to implement the DOE SCM programs, which were approved on October 6th, 2021. BGE and the Joint Utilities needed Commission approval for the SCM because DOE funds that were provided cannot be used for incentives paid out to customers. The Joint Utilities requested $745,000 in ratepayer contributions, of which half was allocated to BGE for incentive payments. This modification to the SCM will allow BGE to use $5,000, which is currently budgeted for fleet incentives, for incentive payments to participants to implement a vehicle-to-home, or VTH, demonstration. V2H, excuse me. BGE will enroll up to 10 participants who own a Ford F-150 Lightning EV pickup truck
and have also installed Sunrun's home integration system, which facilitates bidirectional EV charging. BGE's request will not require any additional ratepayer funding, and staff recommends that the Commission accept the request to modify BGE's SCM program and accept the proposed tariff filed by BGE with an effective date of March 8th, 2024. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
So, any questions?
Morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Mark Shebas for the Office of People's Counsel. We support the company's request with its agreement to allow OPC to review the surveys that it intends to send customers in connection with this program. We made that request when we appreciate the company's cooperation because with only 10 customers participating, the quantitative data may not tell us that much, may not be statistically significant. That makes getting some qualitative data here about why did customers buy these systems in the first place, how were they using them before the program, how has the program and the incentive changed their behavior, makes all that information the more important. So we just asked the company for an opportunity to review the surveys, and again, we appreciate their cooperation. The other thing I just wanted to highlight is, effectively, this program also terminates the commercial fleet program by diverting part of the budget associated with that program. We don't oppose that. At this stage in the process, it makes sense. We just wanted to highlight that we continue to think that commercial programs of that kind are important. Obviously, OPC represents the interest of residential customers, but commercial fleet charging could add significant load. Depending on whether that load is managed or not, there could be a need for significant infrastructure, and depending how rates are made, that could affect residential rates. So we just wanted to highlight that, not material to whether the Commission grants the application or not, but that's all. So thank you very much.
Any questions for OPC? Okay. So go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Hoover and Commissioners. Crystal Barnett on behalf of BGE. The company appreciates and agrees with staff's recommendations to approve the request to modify the SCM program, and I don't have anything additional to add. The company is available today for questions.
Any questions? Okay. Commissioner Sussman?
Good morning. So I guess my question to you is the question I had for SMECO as well. And actually, it's probably more important in terms of this program, since some of the incentive, the intent of the incentives, I'm assuming, not just to have the participation in the program, but to also have the participants engage in behavior that is going to be helpful to the grid, since that's the whole point of V2H. And so is time of use rates part of this program?
So this is a time varying rate, and I do have John Frayne available from the company who can answer that question in more detail.
Okay.
I can speak. So BG in their SCM program already has a separate time of use rate program. So this is different in that, well, it does have a time of use component because customers are only paid from 3 to 8 p.m. for what they provide back to the grid. So there is a time component, but they do already have a separate kind of pure residential time of use program within the SCM program. So this is kind of separate and somewhat.
Okay, so the program is a 5-hour program from 3 to 8.
Monday through Friday. Yeah.
Okay, and so if you are so you're not BG is not taking power at any time other than between 5 and 8, which is your peak period.
3 and 8. Yeah.
I mean 3 to 8.
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, John Frayne on behalf of BGE. So the program is designed to allow us to use the vehicle battery charge to help power the home during the peak hours of 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. It's what I would call a time varying offering, which means that, instead of a traditional time of use rate, which is more of I'll call it a stick offering, where you have a higher peak rate and a lower off-peak rate, so you're encouraging customers to shift usage to that off-peak, lower cost time frame. This is more of a carrot type offering, where you're actually using an incentive to encourage customers to allow us to shift usage and to actually use their battery to power the home during peak hours to help
And the customer has to stay connected for that entire period.
Yes.
So if they disconnect it at 8 p.m., they lose the incentive that would have been provided to them if they had stayed on the entire sort of 3 to 9.
That part I'm going to ask Amanda to
Okay.
answer. Yeah.
Good morning, Commissioners. Amanda Janaski from BGE. Great question. So the way that the performance-based incentive works, we're going to take 15-minute increments between 5 to 9, and we're going to average or get a daily average for that day. So depending upon how much the customer discharged within those each 15-minute increments will equal their average. And then every day that leads up to that month, we'll take a monthly average from their daily average. So it's really up to the customer about when they discharge, and it's entirely up to them about how much or how frequently they want to do it between 5 to 9.
Okay, and so in collecting, because it's a pilot, in collecting the data, you're going to have data about sort of the period when they are discharging. So you'll get a sense of so perhaps 6 to 8 is the optimal time where most customers are willing to provide.
Absolutely. We'll be able to look back at that data to do some analysis and then figure out maybe some customers don't really start discharging until 7 o'clock, for example.
Okay.
But we'll be able to look back and see that trend from
Okay.
a customer.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Barbet? Oh,
So as to the reporting data for usage, are you going to be capturing data such as the number of vehicle owners who choose to use the service as opposed to those who don't? Let me tell you why I'm asking the question. I'm one of those people who believes that in the long run, most people will choose not to use their battery as backup for the grid. I think most people would rather hold on to the miles. So will we be able to test what the level of usage is through the data that you report?
What we'll be capturing would be start and end time for their discharging sessions, as also the amount that's discharged. The pilot is small, so we're going to enroll up to 10 customers right now, and that's just because there's a cost with this home integration system with Sunrun. Ford has a partnership with Sunrun, which is why it has to be Sunrun for the home integration system for the F-150 Lightning. So for the 10 customers, hopefully we get 10 customers. There's 4 currently that have the integration system installed, and about 17 more that are looking to install it before the summer. So we're hopeful to get up to 10 participants, but of those 10, we'll be reporting back data of whoever enrolls in the program.
Well, okay, but I mean, if only 3 vehicle owners do and 7 don't, will we know that?
Yes, we'll reach out. So we're Sunrun's going to do the marketing outreach to customers. We'll understand who doesn't respond.
And you're going to report as a part of as a part of the tariff and the data, how much is. I assume this is a system where selling electricity back to the grid, you get some kind of a bonus financially, right?
Commissioner, there isn't, we're not going to be taking this power that comes from the vehicle battery. It's going to be used at the customer's premise at the home. It's not going to be sold into
All right,
the market
okay.
otherwise, yeah.
All right, understood. Thank you.
Commissioner Richard?
Yeah, Mr. Friend, I think you may have just answered my question. I was just trying to understand specifically why this was going to be administered through a Visa gift card program and not just a bill credit. But this really isn't like net metering. We're not sending money out onto the grid. Is that what I understand?
That's correct.
Okay, and why wouldn't? I mean, it just strikes me that it seems like using administering this program that involved Visa gift cards could be itself administrative charge when we already have something in place that for net metering that is already connected to the bill credit. Maybe help me out why are we going this route?
Great question, Commissioner Richards. All right, so a Visa gift card is used for a couple of the EV programs to date. The home charging incentive program is a $50 Visa gift card. But as you mentioned, we also have on-bill credits, right, for the other vehicle charging programs, like the vehicle charging time of use program, the smart charge management program. There's a time constraint when it comes to this program. So BGE, or Exelon's DOE commitment is for this year. So the DOE pilot actually ends in December. BGE's peak period for the demonstration period will be the summer from June to September. And to be able to do on-bill credits, there's some CCB or billing system enhancements that are needed. And honestly, it just wouldn't be possible to have that system enhancement done for on-bill credits by June 1st.
Okay, so this is not a permanent state. This is just for the purposes
Yep.
of this pilot.
And
Okay.
we're always open to looking at the best way to pay out customers for those credits, whether it's on-bill or gift cards. So there's always openness towards looking at the future.
Okay, great. Well, that's helpful. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So let me, why is the program limited to Ford trucks and Sunrun systems?
So Ford has an exclusive partnership with Sunrun. So it's a partnership that unfortunately we had nothing to do with, but specifically for the F-150 Lightnings, only Sunrun can install the home integration system. So that is why we are limited to Ford today. There's also, there's not many chargers to date, right, that can do bidirectional charging. So it is limited from a technology perspective right now. Those are the main reasons why it's Ford and Sunrun right now.
Okay. And related to this concern that OPC raised about the lack of interest in the commercial fleets, I mean, has the company tried to figure out what the problem is? Or
We have. I will say we are still committed to exploring and working with our commercial customers regarding fleet management. We still have our fleet program, so that's the technical assessments as well as the rebates for chargers and make-ready incentives. We are working closely with those customers to understand their needs for charging. What I can say in terms of what we saw regarding the interest in the commercial fleet program, commercial customers have very specific needs when it comes to their chargers that they need for their operation of their business. The charger that we were offering in that commercial fleet program just was not meeting those needs. BGE and Exelon, so PHI as well. We had to select a specific charger that met the DOE commitments, that had extensive testing that was done, so we were only able to offer one charger for the DOE commitment. So I'll say all this to say, we've reached out to customers extensively. We're still very committed to working with commercial customers and thinking through a commercial fleet management program in the future. This is just in scope of the DOE program right now, but we still have our fleet program going forward, and we're always looking for new areas or programs to explore with our commercial customers.
And does this grant program end at a certain point?
Yes, the DOE grant program ends at this year, 2024.
I see. Okay. All right. With that, I move that we accept the request to modify BG&E's Smart Charge Management Program and accept the tariff revisions for filing with an effective date of March 8th, 2024, and direct the company to share the results of the surveys with staff and the Office of People's Counsel. Commissioner Sussman?
Aye.
Commissioner Barve?
Aye.
Commissioner Richard?
Aye.
I vote aye.
Mr. Chair, item number 12 is a petition from True Connect Communications, Inc. for designation as an eligible telecommunications carrier.
I'm sorry, Chair Hoover, before we move on, I just want to note that, our request was for the company to allow us to see the draft surveys before they go out, not just to see the results afterward.
I see.
So just, I think the company's already agreed to that, but I would just appreciate if the commission's order can reflect that.
So we will. So,
Okay, thank you.
thanks.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Evan Thomas on behalf of staff. On February 6th, 2024, True Connect Communications, Inc. filed an application for designation as an eligible telecommunications carrier, or ETC, in the state of Maryland. True Connect seeks this designation to provide low-income lifeline service to qualifying Maryland customers statewide through the underlying networks of T-Mobile and Verizon Wireless. The company currently provides lifeline services in 7 other states and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Qualifying Maryland customers will receive unlimited voice minutes, unlimited text, and 4.5 gigabytes of data per month at no cost to the customer. True Connect has demonstrated that it follows and will continue to follow all federal and state laws and regulations pertaining to the Lifeline program. Staff finds the designation to be in the public interest as it will further increase competition among providers of Lifeline services for low-income consumers in the state of Maryland. And overall, staff recommends the Commission allow a 30-day period from today, March 6, 2024, for any party that believes the application should be rejected to file comments. And then staff further recommends that the Commission find the designation of TrueConnect as an ETC is in the public interest and grant the company such designation pursuant to Title 47 of the United States Code Section 214E for the service territory specified in the application 10 days later unless adverse comments are received by the Commission prior to that date. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
Any questions? So, one question for me. So this company already operates in 7 other states,
Yes.
and they operate without any problems, or?
That's correct. They have a compliance, Lifeline providers are required to file a compliance plan with the FCC. The company did that when they first began offering Lifeline services and have filed amendments to their compliance plan as the federal regulations have changed. And in my research, I could not find any compliance issues with them in the FCC.
Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Deborah McGuire Mercer on behalf of TrueConnect Communications Incorporated. TrueConnect wants to thank staff for its review of its petition and its support. I don't have anything particular to add, but I can confirm what staff told you, that TrueConnect is a longtime provider of telecommunications services. They started providing services in 1998, and then they started providing wireless telecommunications services in 2012, and first became a Lifeline provider in 2013. And throughout that time period, they have never had any ETC, a designation revoked, or any compliance issue that rose to an investigation or enforcement type matter. Thank you, and I'm also available for more questions.
So what are the other 7 states that you operate in?
Oh,
Do you know?
goodness. Okay.
Best
so-
guess.
They are in, California is the one that comes to mind. I'm sorry, I'm not able to rattle them off.
Well,
but
I guess a second question. So they're
Yeah.
all across the country. You're not like a regional.
No,
entity.
they are not. Yeah, they are in, and they're looking to expand. They do have ETC petitions pending in about 10 more states, and just a few weeks ago, they were granted ETC designation by the Wyoming Public Service Commission. So, yeah, so they do have a plan to be offering Lifeline service more widely throughout the country.
All right, with that, I move that we allow a 30-day period for any party that believes that the application should be rejected to file comments with the Commission and find that the designation of the company as an eligible telecommunications carrier is in the public interest, and grant the company such designation pursuant to 47 U.S. Code 214E for the service territory specified in its application 10 days later, unless adverse comments are received by the Commission prior to that date. Commissioner Sushman?
Aye.
Commissioner Barbe? Aye. Commissioner Richard?
Aye.
I vote aye.
Mr. Chair, item number 13 is a request from Cherrywood Solar One LLC for approval of its decommissioning plan.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Christopher Lowe on behalf of staff. On January 12, 2024, Cherrywood Solar One LLC requested Commission approval of the decommissioning plan for the Cherrywood Solar project, pursuant to the PPRP condition number 11, which was adopted by the Commission as part of a CPCN issued by the Commission that authorized construction of this project. According to PPRP condition number 11, Cherrywood is required to file for Commission approval a decommissioning plan along with the decommissioning cost forecast from a third-party consultant to determine the amount of surety bond, letter of credit, or other financial security that Cherrywood must obtain in connection with the decommissioning. In its filing, Cherrywood describes its plan for decommissioning activities for equipment associated with the project after its useful life. The plan also addresses removal of all structures, foundation, restoration of soil and vegetation. Cherrywood forecasts that it will incur a total decommissioning cost of $15.3 million, and that it will receive $10.2 million in decommissioning revenues associated with the salvage value of the project's equipment. The company commits to use the surety bond to provide financial assurance in the amount of $5,108,562 to cover the estimated net liability associated with the decommissioning. Staff recommends that the Commission approve Cherrywood's proposed decommissioning plan and direct the company to provide documentary evidence for securing a surety bond of $5,108,562 prior to the start of the construction. Thank you.
Any questions? Commissioner Barbe.
Thank you. A broad question here, because I believe it or not, I feel I should know the answer to this question, but I do not. I know that for solar energy, and I believe maybe for wind, there's a requirement in the law for decommissioning planning, but I'm curious, and I assume it's that that's the case for nuclear under federal regulations, but I'm curious if there are any other forms of energy generation where the law requires decommissioning planning and reporting.
I believe it applies to solar, wind, and also other type of energy power plant.
Okay, if you could, my understanding was that solar and wind were the only forms of energy that required full restoration and decommissioning, but I could have been wrong about that. I was told that many years ago. If you could just have somebody check into the law and get back to me, I'd appreciate it.
Any other questions? Actually, so Mr. Tolson, I take it PPRP's in accord with this?
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Steve Tolson, counsel for PPRP. Yes, on February the 8th, we filed a letter on behalf of PPRP stating they didn't oppose the decommissioning plan. I note that in that, PPRP said they'd like to understand better why the capacity went from 202 megawatts to 145 megawatts. The data requests that are attached to staff's buck sheet provide an explanation for that. I believe it has to do with inverters. And so that issue has been resolved, and Mr. Fred Kelly is here from PPRP to address any concerns the Commission may have, but we have nothing further to add.
Okay. Fair enough.
Morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Max Cook on behalf of Cherrywood Solar One LLC. I also have with me Mr. Jason Andrews from the project company. We've reviewed staff's filing. We have nothing further to add. And with respect to Mr. Tolson's comments, we're also in agreement. And we're here to answer any questions. Thank you.
So this thing is in Caroline County. Where exactly in Caroline County?
It is in Caroline County. In Goldsboro, Caroline County.
So, any questions? All right. I move that we approve the company's decommissioning plan and direct the company to provide documentary evidence. Oh, wait a minute.
It could have waited till after the motion. No, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
In regard to the earlier question, there's no statutory or regulatory requirement for coal or gas-fired plants to have decommissioning plans.
Okay. Very interesting. Okay, so back to where we were. I move that we approve the company's decommissioning plan and direct the company to provide documentary evidence for securing a bond of $5,108,562 prior to the start of construction. Commissioner Sushman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbe.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Mr. Chair, item number 14 is an application from United American Marketing Corp. For a license to operate as an electric supplier in Maryland.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Charles Herbert on behalf of the staff.
On October 23, 2023, United American Marketing Corp., or UAM, filed with the Commission an application for a license to supply electricity or electric generation services in Maryland. In UAM's instant filing, the company admitted that it had been operating in Maryland's retail energy supply market without a license from September 19, 2019 to September 3, 2022. After hearing UAM's application at the January 17, 2024 administrative meeting, the Commission issued bench requests that UAM 1. Provide an attachment detailing UAM's unlicensed operations in Maryland, specifically describe what services UAM was providing to customers and detail the extent of UAM's interaction with residential customers in particular. 2. Submit UAM's training and marketing materials that the company plans to use for its operations in Maryland should the company become licensed. On February 8, 2024, UAM filed its planned Maryland training and marketing materials and its explanation of the nature of the company's unlicensed operations in Maryland. Staff reviewed the training and marketing materials and did not find issues with either material. Accordingly, staff recommends that the Commission grant the company a license to operate as an electricity supplier in Maryland, limited to electricity broker services to residential, commercial, and industrial customers. Staff also recommends that the Commission issue a civil penalty to the company in the amount of $3,067.36. Finally, staff recommends that the Commission direct the company to notify the Commission within 30 days of any changes to the information upon which the Commission relied in granting this license. One note, staff did get a chance to read OPC's comments that were filed, and we do have a response to the confidentiality issue, so we can provide that response now or after OPC gives their presentation, whichever the Commission prefers.
Well, why don't we let them argue their point, and we'll come back to you. So, any questions for staff on issues other than this confidentiality matter? All right, so actually I have a question. So, I read in the buck sheet this formula that you use to determine the fine, but it strikes me that, given the fact that this company was operating without a license for a number of years, I guess it strikes me that the fine is insignificant.
And I will say we have used this formula a few times to calculate penalties in the past. Company with a higher amount of revenues was fined $10,000. That was Hovey Energy. Now, we didn't explicitly put the formula in the buck sheet then, but we did mention it on the record that we'd used the formula. And the Commission went ahead and adopted staff's penalty recommendation for that case. In this case, we have a company with a lower revenue than that, so the penalty amount is lower. But the idea is that we have a penalty process that renders a penalty recommendation that is significant relative to the company's unlicensed Maryland revenues that they earned in the state. So that's the idea behind that.
Well, I guess the concern I have is, does this amount of money provide a deterrent to this company? I mean, their explanation is that, they were essentially clueless as to our requirements, and only figured it out when, I guess, the company they were working with, Constellation, told them, and it just strikes me that, that's a fairly serious violation. Not so much I'm not worried about the fees and things like that they were supposed to pay for us, but the fact that they were operating here for a number of years without having a thought about whether or not they should have been licensed here. I mean, it strikes me that almost every business has to get some sort of license, and so I'm frankly a little surprised why they seem to think they didn't need a license here.
Sure, Chair. Well, the company did mention in their filing that broadly speaking, they claim that they didn't realize they needed a license. In their filing, they note that they didn't know that their specific the type of operations that they were doing fell within the category of supply operations. Staff understands that. We also understand that, like say, this operating without a license, especially for a long period of time, like this company, is a severe violation. But we believe that this penalty that was rendered by our formula process is enough of a deterrent to companies to then say, hey, you need to be familiar with our laws, you need to be familiar with the what constitutes supply operations in the state, because staff will recommend, has precedent for recommending penalties in such cases, and there are consequences for engaging.
Okay, Commissioner Suchman.
Okay, so I'm going to follow up on the chair's questioning. Do you have a sense of how much the company earned during the period where they were unlicensed?
Yes, that was the that's one of the inputs actually. That's the revenue that we input, that we use in our formula to come up with the part of the formula that penalizes the revenue. The revenue that we use is the total aggregate unlicensed revenue. So that's not just the revenue they were making at the time of the application or when they realized. It's the aggregate revenue that spans all of the years that they operated without a license.
In Maryland?
Yes.
Okay. So what is the relationship between what they earned and what the penalty is? So I guess the question is, why, for example, wouldn't disgorgement of what they had earned during the period when they were unlicensed be the penalty? I'm assuming that would be significant.
As to your question, the relationship between the penalty and what the company earned during their unlicensed period, staff has a proportion of that revenue that was earned during the unlicensed period, and the proportion that we've chosen in this case is the same proportion that we've had in the previous cases from 2022, and there were a number of these cases in 2023 as well, early 2023.
Okay. So basically, I understand what you're saying, but can you give me a number? So for the period when, so I do have the number that you're recommending in terms of the penalty, which is $3,000 and change. Can you give me the number of what they had earned during the period when they were unlicensed?
Staff can provide that to you. We that since it's the input to the formula, it would be in the confidential version of the buck sheet as well that we filed.
So we can't say it here.
Okay. Because it just seems to me, I mean, the formula is a number. I'm not really understanding really what the number is. I understand that it came as a result of a formula, but disgorgement of earnings for a period when you were unlicensed, that to me makes sense. You know, you were here, you weren't following the rules, you shouldn't be benefiting. I mean, I think, for example, if the $3,000 represents a very small percentage of what they had earned during the period when they were unlicensed, then they benefited from being unlicensed, and there's a small slap on the wrist. So I mean, I'll take a look at the buck sheet number, but it just the number doesn't make sense to me, and I worry, like the chair is expressing, is this an adequate deterrent? But also, should a company that's been unlicensed during the period when it was operating here be allowed to profit from that period where they weren't following the rules?
Okay, and I think I understand your question a little more, Commissioner. The idea that the penalty should be inclusive of all of the aggregate revenues that they earned while unlicensed. The staff's proportion comes from previous cases. So in terms of reason why staff hasn't recommended that, the short answer is we haven't had any cases where we've recommended that before, or that I can name off the top of my head that the commission has approved a penalty that was inclusive of the entire unlicensed revenues. But if the
Well, and I wouldn't necessarily say, I mean, earnings. I mean, if, I'm not saying revenues, because it would be unfair to penalize them for money that they had to shell out. But if there was a number that represented the earnings for the period where they were unlicensed, to me, that seems to make more sense in terms of a penalty than just an arbitrary. I mean, I understand that you're following a formula, but I looked at the formula and it didn't make sense to me, and I didn't know that I was supposed to do math on this side of the dais also. So I'd like to know, and I guess we can't know until I guess I can know if I look at the buck sheet but it just seems to me that seems more sensible, because it actually goes to the heart of what it was that they were doing wrong. I mean, disgorgement of profits is often what happens when you're found guilty of something, and so I guess I'm done.
Actually, let me ask, before I turn to you, let me ask one follow-up question. So, when was the formula created, and how was it created, if you know?
I think Kevin Mosier, who's behind me, has more of a concrete answer to that.
Okay, all right, and then I'll come.
Kevin Mosier on behalf of staff. I think it's probably about 5 years old, and I will say it's based on, we've had this issue with brokers going back, at least I'd say 15 years, and for a long number of years we would find them either the back assessments or $100, whichever is larger. At some point we decided it to be larger. We find companies, I think, as much as about 25,000. We find some companies, in some cases zero. Long story short, I don't know. I don't know that it's based on trying to kind of go with commission precedent, and the commission precedent has varied a lot over the years.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
If the commission, if Commissioner Schussman, if your idea is the new precedent, I think staff is perfectly fine with that. In fact, probably an improvement over maybe what we've done in the past.
Okay, so I guess we'd have to take some formal action to create a brand new formula or a brand new process to do these fines.
I think actually, if you just wanted to say, all profits, then that's.
Well, that seems to avoid the formula.
Well, that bears upon my question directly.
So, all right, so why don't you go ahead and ask your...
So I'm looking at the formula. The impression I got was that the fine was intended to only to take away the profits, not the entire revenue stream. And the revenue stream would be every dollar that was paid to the business as opposed to the profit, which is some percentage of that. And my impression was that the formula is intended really to take away the profit portion from the revenue stream. Is that correct?
I think that's at least somewhat true. Now, I will say, because these are all brokers, I mean, if you were, for someone who's a supplier who's actually taking title, they cannot operate without a license because the utility won't let them onto their network. Broker can. Also note that, with a supplier, the margins are going to be oftentimes much lower. They have to buy the electricity, sell it for whatever profit, hopefully a fairly small margin. With brokers, the margins can be a much larger percentage of revenue.
And I notice in the formula, it's one of the elements is in parentheses L-1. L is the number of licenses the company should have applied for to be compliant. -1, which means, I guess, we're giving them one bite at the apple. We're allowing them to. We're granting them one mistake. Is that?
Well, actually, Commissioner, the reason that term is defined the way it is because our precedent was, in the past, we didn't have a term for that, because the unlicensed operation only ever extended to a single license. So what we wanted to do is, if the company was operating in both electricity and natural gas, there would be a way to add a little bit of an extra penalty for being out of compliance with 2 licenses as opposed to 1. So that's why it's defined that way.
Okay, well, going back to Mr. Mosier, my impression is right now the formula is sort of designed to take away just the profit portion of the revenue, not the entire portion of the revenue. And you appear to be arguing that in the instance of a broker, that's the appropriate way to do it, rather than somebody who's producing the service. Is that what you're saying?
No, I guess I just wanted to clarify that, with this is only ever applied to brokers because, again, a supplier, the utilities won't.
They know better.
Yeah, and again, the utilities, if you were a supplier without a license, PG&E will not let you use their network.
Mm-hmm.
So this only applies to brokers, and I think that was kind of the idea was, well, let's take back most, if not all, of the profits, but we also don't have any hard data on what that profit is. I mean, with the supplier, we can kind of look at SOS and decide, okay, well, this, you were 20% above, that's your profit. With a broker, their costs are mostly just fixed cost.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I'm asking is that in the formula, the definition of alpha is that it equals a revenue factor that is selected from a range, which seems to me like a profit percentage, approximating a profit percentage. If that wasn't the intention, maybe you're just doing it that way because that's the way we always did it. There wasn't a motivation to just narrowly go after the profit as opposed to the entire revenue then.
I think that's true. I mean, it's also, I think this formula has been kind of worked on by numerous people over the years. It's, I think the idea was staff wanted to have something that was, consistent across various suppliers, and, it's tough to do because, this isn't much art as it is anything else. It's, again, I think, Commissioner Schuschman made the great point. We want to make sure this is large enough to incent the next actor to not violate the law, but not so high as to be, overly punitive. What that number is awfully difficult, for staff to come up with in a formula.
Just out of curiosity, I mean, I did go to our website and I did look, search under licenses, but I didn't actually look at what the license application was. When I was in the private sector, I was often discovering I was out of compliance with the laws of South Carolina on some very piddly thing that I would never have imagined that I would have to fill out an application for, and so I would fill out a one-page application and pay their nuisance fee, and they would waive charges because I think it was just a revenue source for them. But I mean, how complicated is the licensing process for brokers? Do you know?
I'd say it's fairly straightforward. I mean, it is, it's about 15 pages, but a lot of that is just, contact information, where you're operating, that sort of thing. And then we ask for, technical and managerial competency, but mostly we're just looking for, again, particularly in the case of brokers, a resume, and that you were, and this is generally through companies have been operating as a broker or supplier in other states, so they have a track record. And then, of course, financial review, but with a broker, that's just submitting the $10,000 bond. That by itself meets the COMAR regulations, so nothing else is required.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions for staff? So, Ms. Bell.
Good morning, Juliana Bell, Deputy People's Counsel, Office of People's Counsel. With your indulgence, I just wanted to briefly introduce you to Milen Tekla-Mikhail, who's sitting immediately to my left here. She's an Assistant People's Counsel who's barred in the District of Columbia and awaits her license in the state of Maryland. And once that is forthcoming, she will be talking to you, but today you're stuck with me, and I will be brief. I just want to not repeat our comments, but note a couple of things. One, in our comments, we suggested that we agree with staff's recommendation in terms of a fine of at least $3,000 and some odd dollars. This has been a very interesting conversation, and quite frankly, mirrors some conversations that we've had internally struggling with what do we recommend in terms of civil monetary penalties in these cases. It's our understanding that this formula has been used going back years, but obviously the Commission has great discretion in these matters. 13201D allows you to fine $25,000 per violation per day. Just wanted to note that as in opening. In terms of some of the questions you've been asking, I just want to point out that staff did refile its buck sheet and made public some of its earlier inputs on page 8 of its buck sheet. It actually lists the revenue that the company actually publicly filed in its application. So over that 4-year period when it was unlicensed, that revenue number was $21,129.40. And with respect to Commissioner Barvey's question, the application actually is filed publicly as part of this docket, and you can look at, the particulars of how complicated that was or wasn't for the company to fill out. The company did make this number public in that application. I guess, with respect to our comments as filed, we think that the exercise here is for the Commission to have some rationale for the number it selects in terms of a civil monetary penalty, and staff's formula that it's used for a number of years weighs a number of different things. It looks at the number of years the company has been unlicensed, and it looks at what I believe Commissioner Barvey actually, according to the formula as laid out on page 8, is a percentage of revenue. So it's looking not at a percentage of profit, but a percentage of revenue. Disgorgement also makes sense to the extent that the Commission, as it's looking at these matters, it looks at them individually, at the facts and circumstances of each one, obviously. And in this case, there were some mitigating factors that staff noted in its buck sheet, which included the company, upon realizing that it was not in compliance, immediately ceased doing business in Maryland. But as Commissioner Suchman, I think, pointed out, ignorance of the law is no excuse, and this is a serious violation, being without a license for 4 years. So I think OPC would support a full disgorgement of the revenue if that were the direction the Commission wanted to go. Our comments were in part related to the fact that the staff has used this, and I believe the Commission has used some approximation of this methodology for determining fines for brokers for years. And with that, I'm available.
Well, actually, what about this confidentiality issue? that
Thank
staff
you.
wanted
Thank
to
you for
respond?
reminding me of that. We just think that that there is no apparent or given reason for why a formula staff is using to calculate a fine recommendation wouldn't be transparent to both those it's being applied against and to the public. We think to the extent that the concern is that somebody would be able to reverse engineer the amount of revenues. In this case before you, the company itself revealed those revenues. But even if it hadn't, we're not convinced that top-line revenues are confidential under the Maryland Public Information Act. We think some showing of why that's the case would need to be made, and to the extent that staff would want to make a showing of that today, or the company would, we'd appreciate the ability to respond to that, and to research it and look at it. But I think, with respect to confidentiality and company financial information, I'm most familiar with that in the procurement world, in which companies can file a redacted version of their proposal for a public procurement, and then the agency has the ability to push back on that and ask them to substantiate under the PIA why they want to redact that information. And generally, I think, I would like to be able to look at this more closely depending on what staff says, but it's not just the ability to reverse engineer revenues. In cases in which you're able to reverse engineer pricing mechanisms, how does the company come up with the price it's going to charge? Not what is the price, but how did the company come up with it? Those back office kinds of informations are often looked at to determine whether it's confidential. What's the overhead? What's the profit margin you're looking for? So that a competitor in the future can't just take that formula and say, okay, they want a certain amount of overhead, they want a certain amount of profit, we know what those components are, and we can use that to predict in a future procurement what the price is that they're going to give. And so here, we're just talking about top-line revenues. We're not talking about how the company came up with its pricing. We're not talking about any sort of back-office kind of information.
Okay. Any questions for OPC? All right, so we have two representatives from United American Marketing Corp. Virtually, so whichever one of you wants to go first and just tell us who you are, and go ahead.
My name is Tim Karlmark. I'm the Executive Vice President of UAM. Abdu?
Yes, my name is Abdul Alimira, and I am in the finance department with United American Marketing.
Okay, so you've heard all of the, the staff's comments, OPC's comments, so I guess respond as you would like to any and all comments you heard. So.
Well, first of all, we would like to express our regret for the omission that we committed. I would like to kind of echo a comment that happened before. As soon as it came to our attention, we ceased doing business and engaged in the process of applying for the license. We are willing, at your direction, to provide whatever information you require. We would like to cooperate fully to the extent that we're able.
Okay, so any questions for the company? I do. Commissioner Sushman.
Good morning. So you are now licensed in Maryland, and are you doing business in Maryland at this point?
We are not currently doing business in Maryland. Our focus, and actually our headquarters, is located in Illinois, so we are not operating in Maryland at all at this point.
Okay, but you are licensed.
Well, if we,
I believe so, yes.
if we approve it.
If we approve it,
Right,
right.
yeah.
Okay, so right.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry about that. And you heard our conversation about the calculation of the penalty. So the $21,129 was revenue for the period in which you were not licensed, that 3-year period.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and do you have a way to calculate profit based on that 21,000 revenue?
I believe with Abdu's help, we would be able to come up with that number. I will mention that any work that we were doing in Maryland, we were actually sending representatives from the Chicago area to Maryland. In other words, we were paying for their travel, we were paying for their accommodation, and we were paying for their meals at that point. So there was overhead certainly involved.
Okay, but other than travel, meals, accommodations, what other expenses would you have had?
Only back office support, registering whatever contracts they were entering into with the supplier.
Okay, but I would assume that even calculating all of that, that would not get you to $3,000 from the 21,000.
At this point, I'm not able to answer that. I wasn't really involved with the company at that point.
Okay.
But we can certainly supply some figures to see if that's the case or not.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for the company? All right, so I guess staff wanted to opine about the confidentiality issue, so go ahead.
Yes. First and foremost, we wanted to reiterate our concern that if the full evaluation of the formula is revealed, because we note in the buck sheet that we've used the particular proportion in this case and all of the previous cases, that hasn't been varied before, then previous applicants such as management services providers or MSP who had filed confidentially for their revenues, someone could then take the inputs and then back into their revenues, and staff doesn't feel that that would be right to have that possibility. Staff also wanted to note that in that case, the MSP case, staff hid the entire evaluation of a formula in its comments, even when it would have been mathematically possible to reveal several variables, kind of like we have here, but not necessarily the weights, without revealing the revenues. The commission at the admin had some reservations about the recommended penalty, but there was no mention of the confidentiality issue. Actually, OPC filed comments, and in their letter, they were in agreement with staff's recommendations, and they never mentioned the confidentiality concern there. Also, previously in the Hovey Energy case, staff used the formula, albeit implicitly. We mentioned the formula on the record, actually the YouTube at the 2507 mark, and the commission didn't ask staff to follow up with revealing the evaluation of the formula there at all. They just approved our recommended penalty. We were in communication with OPC during that case over email, but they didn't file a formal letter. So we wanted to note that this issue hasn't been brought up by OPC before. So.
Yeah, just in response to that, I mean, obviously we've had a more robust focus on transparency and in a number of situations asking for documents previously filed as confidential to be made public. I don't think the presentation staff just made actually meets what we were requesting here, which is a showing under the MPIA that the information that would be revealed deserves to remain confidential, that there's an exemption or an exception that applies. So I think they would need to show that rather than just stating it would reveal top-line revenues. I think the showing would have to be, is there some competitive harm, or would that impede applicants to be brokers in the state of Maryland who would be worried that that their information would be so worried their information would be revealed that they would not want to participate. So I don't, I don't think that really meets what we were requesting here.
Commissioner Sushman.
If we were to throw out the formula and to just do it on the basis of profit, would that present a confidentiality issue because then the rest of the broker community would know what their profits were for the period when they were not licensed? Would that raise the same issue?
Harrison Scher on behalf of staff. It would raise that confidentiality issue, and I would like to add that I believe revenues would be considered proprietary information. As Mr. Herbert stated, MSP previously did file their revenue as confidential. They took efforts to protect it, and revealing this would violate the Business Records and Trade Secret exemption in Section 4-335 of the General Provisions article of Maryland Code, which prohibits a state agency from disclosing PIA-exempt information. So doing such would violate that very business exemption.
Not revenues, though, profits. So profits also, Mr. Spivak?
Not so much profits, but I just want to point out, staff does not actually have the discretion to reveal information that is designated confidential to us. The only time we can do that is if the commission tells us the information properly should not be held confidential. So we can't, I don't know that we could even do that in a blanket fashion. We could, I think we have to ask the commission if we want to reveal something that has been provided to us on a confidential basis.
So let me ask, what you're saying is if a company files something and says it's confidential, you can't reveal it.
That's correct, Commissioner. We cannot and will not reveal that unless we come to the commission and ask the commission on the grounds that we don't believe this should properly be held confidential.
I see. Okay, so you won't do it on your own, but if you think that you should reveal it, then you would come to us and say, hey, this was filed confidentiality. We don't think it is confidential, and so therefore tell us the, okay, all right, I understand that. So, okay, well, let me cut to the chase on this. We're going to take all of this under advisement since we're awaiting some information from United American Marketing Corporation. And so we're going to take the fine and the and this issue about what's going to be confidential under advisement, and we'll provide a response at a later date.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, just to be clear, some of the information we're awaiting is the company's profits
Right.
during that 3-year period.
Right.
Okay.
yeah, which is what we asked of the company, and I think they told us they couldn't get that to us. So you'll provide that to both staff and OPC. So.
And if I may, that would be solely for the state of Maryland, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, that's all we're interested in here. So.
And just to clarify, I think in this case, since the revenues were revealed, what we were asking be refiled is a version of staff's buck sheet that makes their formula public. I think staff was arguing that would then retroactively,
Right.
because there's a range, result in the revelation of previous applicants' revenue.
Right, and we will take all of those ancillary issues in consideration when we decide whether or not anything's going to be made public that's currently confidential. So, all right, and with that, what's that? Yeah, so we're going to adjourn the administrative meeting, and then we'll start at 12:50 for the RM 82.
11:50 or 11:50? 11:50.
11:50, yeah, that's right, 11:50, sorry.
You're gonna